Hello and welcome back to Underlab. Deltarune is rather unique in that it isn't finished yet, but regardless there's just so much to talk about. It's fun to speculate on what the later chapters may hold, and I very much believe that unless a third game is planned, we'll be getting many of the answers to both Undertale and Deltarune's first 4 chapters. With that said, who will the final boss of the game be? I have some pretty interesting ideas as to who it may be, and so I've made this list, starting from possible but unlikely candidates to what I think is the most likely. Let's find out who Deltarune's final boss really is. As the most unlikely candidate starting off this list, we have Asgore. This may make little to no sense at first, and hey, he's at the bottom for a reason. Asgore is nothing but nice to us throughout Deltarune, as he gets to be the loving father he never could be in Undertale. He's a warm, welcoming and upstanding individual who tries his best to help around town. So how could someone like that ever end up as the game's final antagonist? Well, first of all, he was the penultimate boss of Undertale. There he was a very different character, and also extremely strong, just he held back as he didn't really want to fight us. The fact alone that he was an important boss in the first game isn't a reason to suspect he will be again, but I could see it working as a sort of twist. No one is really expecting him to once more fight the player. But why? Well, there's actually a fairly compelling reason to think he would. It's revealed in Chapter 4 that Asgore has somehow come into possession of a black shard, a chunk of the Roaring Night, a fearsome foe that pursues us throughout the game as they try to bring about the Roaring, an apocalyptic event. In other videos I've explained that this black substance could be the source of nightmares itself, a calcified material drawn from pure fear, given that the dark worlds of Deltarune seem dependent upon our imagination and emotions. It doesn't seem like much of a stretch to me to suggest that such an eldritch substance could corrupt Asgore, drawing upon his latent magical power and pitting him against us. Dark King Asgore would be a truly fearsome and unexpected foe. Now, one major aspect holding this idea back is that I don't necessarily believe something like this will happen at the end of the game, but maybe as soon as Chapter 5. There's 3 chapters left, so we'll just have to wait and see. One way or another, armed with both his trident and his 4-wheeler, Asgore would make for a seriously tough final boss. Next up, we have Gaster. Gaster is the mysterious scientist first revealed to us hidden away within Undertale's files. He's a haunting presence that seems to exist without time and space, and how corporeal he really is these days is up for debate. It could be argued he isn't even in Deltarune, but I find that very unlikely. The bunker south of town seems like the perfect place to finally encounter this almost mythical character, and said bunker is being set up as the final place we'll go to within Deltarune. The problem with this theory is we still know so little about Gaster. It's hard to say whether he would even have a reason or desire to fight us, though as someone who seemed eager to experiment with pure darkness itself, it's safe to suggest he likely isn't too concerned with morality. It's possible that his experiments are the reason a parallel world like Deltarune even exists to begin with, and the unfathomable darkness he found may be the Titans as described in the Roaring. To that end, he may have been corrupted by the darkness he saw, or perhaps his true goal has always been to splinter and fracture reality for whatever reason. One way or another, Gaster is one of the most intriguing characters across both games, and an epic boss battle with him is the sort of fan service that I'm sure would be difficult to resist putting in. Should we ever finally learn what this character's motives truly are, he may potentially make for a perfect final boss. My next suggestion is the Titans. We face one of these colossal eldritch entities at the end of Chapter 4, making for a serious boss fight. While we do defeat it and seemingly banish it back to the darkness, the prophecy did explicitly state Titans with an S. That means there's more than one, and just one was more than enough of a challenge for Chris, Susie and Rousey. Can you imagine what it would be like fighting an army of these things? If we take the prophecy at face value, and assume Deltarune isn't looking to take any twists or turns, I'd say some potentially amalgamated form of the remaining Titans could be the most likely thing we'd face as a final boss. However, given how the entire story seems to be challenging the notion of following the prophecy to the letter, I think this is pretty unlikely. That doesn't rule out the possibility of another encounter with one of these things. Having defeated one, no doubt we've poked the Hornet's Nest, and I can envision the Roaring Night summoning 2 or even 3 of them upon us at once. Somewhat like how Omega Flowey was only the true final boss of Undertale's neutral route, I can envision the Titans serving a similar purpose, where they adopt a terrifying new form and fight us should we fail to commit to either pacifism or the Snowgrave route. It's entirely possible that it won't play out like this, given how what I've described is just a mirror of Undertale, but then again, Deltarune has been expressly called Undertale's parallel story, so something along the lines of a final encounter with the Titans could in fact be quite plausible. Now we're getting to the characters I think are strong contenders for Deltarune's true final boss, and firstly we have Rousey and Susie. Now I know what you're thinking, these two are our stalwart companions throughout our adventure, and despite occasionally having our differences, there's no way they'd actually fight to stop us. You'd be completely correct, but we have to consider that Chris isn't necessarily a clearly defined character. Given that we control them with the Red Soul, we can make Chris do all manner of unpleasant things, including the nightmarish Snowgrave route. Upon Snowgrave, we manipulate our classmate Noelle into becoming an icy killing machine, given that we're incapable of forcing Chris to kill by themselves. This ends up being a great deal more disturbing than if we were simply the one doing the deed, as not only do we take Chris down this evil path, but also someone who is otherwise completely innocent, and is unfortunately not very good with peer pressure. With all that said, it's getting pretty easy to see why I think Rousey and Susie could end up being the final boss of Deltarune. After all, Undertale had 3 total, so why wouldn't Deltarune be the same? Not only do they have a very good reason as to why they may want to stop Chris, but they're growing in power alongside us during our adventure. Just like companions in any other RPG, they're getting new equipment and learning to draw out their full potential, just like Chris is. Working together to stop our blue villainous protagonist, they may be the only force in all of Deltarune that can stop a Chris fully possessed by the Red Soul and devoted to evil. In fact, you'd think the odds would probably be in their favour, given how there's 2 of them and they should be about as strong as Chris. However, in this hypothetical final battle, I imagine we'll be bringing Noelle along to even the odds, and in what will surely be a tragic and gut-wrenching battle, we may see our former friends entombed within ice and forever forgotten. Now, our next contender is rather obvious, but I'd have to be asleep to not mention them. The Roaring Knight has proven themselves to be one of the most dangerous and consistent antagonists throughout the story so far, being the one alongside Chris intent upon opening dark fountains and therefore being the driving force behind the game's narrative so far. It makes all too much sense that we're probably going to fight this demon in black armour a second time. While we can already battle them as early as Chapter 3, we don't actually beat them even if we survive their onslaught of attacks to the end. Our companions end up knocked out and they knight Chris as a show of mutual respect before they resume their evil routine. We didn't exactly stop them, maybe just tickled them and took a chip off their sword. If that was just them playing around, and they're already a boss so strong that you're actually given the choice to skip them, they're going to make for a seriously intimidating final boss battle. Now, as a harbinger of the Titans, you'd probably think they're probably not as strong as them. That does make sense, but we have a very personal connection to this entity given how they pursue us throughout the game. They're clearly being built up for some sort of major story event or final battle, as I've described. I think it's quite possible that in a dramatic twist, they may take the Titans' power for themselves, granting them all that strength in a single body. It's hard to say how things are going to play out, given that Chris seems to be their ally when not possessed by the Red Soul. I've no doubt, however, that at the very least Susie and Rousey will try their best to stop them, and with the Red Soul at the helm, will ensure Chris backs up their friends. There's also the question of what the Roaring Knight truly is, a revelation that I'm sure will only enhance their potential to be a final boss. I've speculated on this quite a lot already, so be sure to check out my video, The Roaring Knight Revealed, to learn more. My final prediction for what Deltarune's final boss, or bosses, will be, is a character we haven't even met yet. There's so much going on that it feels like a part of the puzzle is missing. Would the Roaring Knight truly be the game's final boss when we've already encountered them and we know that Chris seems to share some sort of kinship with them? It could be possible yet that even the Roaring Knight may join forces with us against a greater foe. At the heart of Deltarune is some sort of incomprehensible evil that seems reluctant to reveal itself. It could be Chara, none other than the genocidal fallen child from Undertale, whose disturbing presence takes control of our game should we do their bidding. I've speculated before that the Red Soul we see in both games may belong to them, and that we're simply borrowing their power and extreme determination to overcome any odds. Reunited with their true vessel, who knows what destruction they could unleash upon the world of monsters and humans alike. What else would be the purpose of Deltarune's bizarre introduction, where we create what appears to be a human's body, before being told it was discarded? Perhaps the Red Soul has had many vessels other than just Chris, Frisk and Chara, and it's only by will of the player that we're able to keep this terrible evil in check. That said, Deltarune's final boss may not even be that. Who rules over the Titans? Do they have some sort of king? Could we face a manifestation of pure darkness, the mysterious force that brings nightmares to life? Again, I do believe Deltarune will have multiple final bosses, and so this could just be one of a few. However, I think just like our Mega Flowey was unlike anything we had seen for our Undertale, we're going to be surprised with some unimaginably deranged enemy to serve as the game's final foe. Whatever it ultimately turns out to be, it's probably a good idea to start practicing dodging hundreds upon hundreds of projectiles now. Thanks for watching. It's fun to think about what Deltarune's final boss may be. There's just so many intriguing possibilities. I could have listed even more than what I did in this video, but I didn't want to try and justify why countless random characters could be final boss material. I just wanted to focus on those I truly feel are the most probable. What do you think? Will Deltarune's final boss just be Sans as Megalovania plays again? Maybe Burger Pants will finally go off the deep end. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.